Now I do a little pitch on this first slide, a bit of a sort of for me a fond memory of nicer times in sunnier climates compared to at the moment. But this picture is quite relevant because Rachel Haber, the lady behind me, is smiling her head off because we're sat in a very expensive beach club in Boca Raton. And I took her out there and said, look, I'm going to demonstrate that we can run the business off of your phone. I'd spent the last month automating a biotech business, everything from marketing through sales, through finance, through HR, through logistics, through warehousing, the whole lot. And it was available both on web, laptop, phone, and also eye-watching as well. So she could manage campaigns off of her phone. She could track progress. She could see what the sales guys are doing. And the sales guys could walk into a meeting with their phone and literally have a quote at the fingertips and check stock levels on shelves in multiple warehouses around the country. So that took, I mean, it's easy when you've got a brand new business. It took me, I think, a month to put the whole lot in. Insight Incorporated, a large US business, was doing a little bit of work moving from Salesforce and I think it was SAP, and they spent 3 years trying to get to Dynamics. So the large companies, it's a painful process because and the reason it's painful is because there are so many people involved in the process across the company, and there are so many practices, established behaviours and systems. It's an absolute complex nightmare to untangle. It's a bit like trying to, if you get a problem with your laptop, it's often better just to reboot the whole thing rather than trying to fix it or even rebuild it and fix it. So with companies that get beyond a certain point, it's painful. So my strong suggestion is, when you're small and beautiful, do this stuff fast because it'll pay dividends later. Having said that, decisions you take are really important because if you're going to stay small and beautiful, then you can go with one strategy, perhaps best in breed tools, the jobs you want to do. If you want to, or you intend to grow the business, it is important to look a bit longer term at where it's going to take you because, give you an example, I use a password protector tool, and I got it a few years ago now. And at the time, I didn't really think about moving off of it to different products. Now it's looking a bit antiquated. I've got loads of my passwords and card details on it. Getting an export that fits somewhere else is a real challenge, and to transfer it across is an absolute nightmare. So I'm locked into it. So you have to think about exit paths as well and where it's taking you longer term. Now, this session isn't going to be, let's get down into the details of each tool and pros and cons and comparisons. It's going to be literally an appetizer. And the idea is to whet your appetite. And if these areas are of interest, I'm happy to have a conversation offline about them and to take you through options. And what I don't do, I've got my own preferences, but all the tools are all pretty good in the market today. Very few exceptions. They do a good job. It's literally sort of what you prefer to use, what you're happy using, with the consideration that if you are going to grow, these tools need to grow with you. So if you're looking just to have a small business, that's fine. But if you're looking for massive growth in the future, have that in your head when you decide about what we want to do next. Okay, now the reasons to do this, so the little picture on the right is actually on my phone, because you can probably get my bias here, and then I use Zoho quite a bit, and I'm a bit stingy because I looked at all the products in the marketplace and looked at Salesforce and thought I can do Salesforce at a fraction of the cost. So I use Zoho for most of my stuff, and there's a reason I use it. I'll go through in a minute. I use Teams as well. I use Evernote quite a bit for my business, and Buffer I use extensively to push content out. The reasons you do this, three really I can see. I mean, one is that there's nothing more tedious than doing all the mundane tasks yourself. And if you've got a lot of things on your plate, like every founder has, it's a lot of plate spinning to do doing the mundane bits as well. So you can automate a heck of a lot and do things a lot faster. It can look way more professional. When I talk to clients about automating some of the processes around invoice and sales order generation and building templates, you spend some time not hard coding, but design these things. Once they're done, it's click button, click button, click button when you issue the thing. It's really fast, so it's worth putting the effort in. And if and when you look for investment, I used to go into companies to do assessments of companies for investment for investors, and one bit you look at is automation, and not just do they have tools in place, and are those tools, are they sort of being maintained, are they supported with a roadmap ahead of them, but how much integration is there? Because what an investor will say is, if this company scales, and resourcing is obviously a key constraint of any company growing, when it starts to grow, the level of complexity when you scale exponentially increases the communication. So having systems that link things together is really important. So they will look for that level of automation integration, or at least a plan for it. Now, I won't get it out of context. I mean, if you had 100 points they were scoring you against, it's not 60 points for automation. It might be 5. But it's still an important score to pick up when you get assessed for investment. They will look and see, are there any pinch points or constraints longer term for you? And that will be used to negotiate your value down. They'll say, all these issues have been found in your business, therefore evaluation is down here rather than up here. So don't miss out by having a sort of poorly thought out strategy. I'm going to look at 3 of the many areas that you can look at. And I'm not going to go talking through, example, work groups, because they're really a platform to allow you to collaborate, and there are loads you can look at. What I'm going to look at particularly that's been useful companies is marketing, customer support, and finance, were the 3 key areas I've picked up that every business struggles with. And the decisions to make I've taken around marketing that may cause issues with the back end process around finance and customer support, etc. So the 4th one down there, integration, is absolutely critical, and I'll try to set the scene for why this is important to consider from day one. Now, it's a very complicated area. Marketing, for example, content management like Buffer allow you to create posts across multiple platforms. A little picture on the right is off my phone, so you can see which network I use. And I've set up a post this session on Buffer to go out across a whole bunch of social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I can let Buffer decide where it goes. Now, the complexity here is that on the left, there's a Sprout Social chart of LinkedIn global engagement. This is a generic engagement model of sort of where people are actually online and looking. So when you throw your post out, perhaps sort of 8, 9 in the evening, there aren't many people around to listen to it or watch it. You need to get that post out globally, in terms of overall engagement, between somewhere around sort of 4 and sort of perhaps 1 or 2. And these sort of tools like Buffer will do this for you. The other consideration to bear in mind is that there's about 8 of these global engagement graphs you can take. I mean, it might be there's a whole different demographic interest around health versus IT in terms of the timeframes they work in. You need to know these for your business to maximize the reach and impact of your posts. And the same applies to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the platforms. So if you've got 8 on LinkedIn, you've got 8 on Instagram, 8 on Facebook, sort of 8 on Twitter. That's a very complicated model to bear in mind. And you have time zones. We have this spread of interest around LinkedIn, for example, is for 1 o'clock. If you put a post out, you have to be able to potentially look at multiple geographies to put a post out to hit a sweet spot. So don't underestimate the complexity of timing posting. This is why when you put a post out, it might get 0 interest. Put the same post out again, you might suddenly get huge interest because you get a different time zone for it. And you need to look at what interest you're getting. You need to look at the analytics. I'll go into a bit later around these platforms. They all have them. LinkedIn has its own basic analytics platform behind it. So there's Facebook, Twitter does as well, and Instagram does as well. So you can look at how things are being responded to. Blogging. If you do blogging, certainly sometimes I think something you do. Sites like WordPress have mixed press. Some people say they're cumbersome, clunky in terms of performance. and you tend to find this comes from website builders, because you can manage things yourself. You're going to have somebody do it for you. So sites like WordPress aren't as efficient as custom cut websites, but they give you massive facilities, including embed analytics. You can schedule your blogs to go at certain times, so you can do a draft and have it set to be issued at a certain point in time. So you could, Friday evening or Saturday or Sunday, sit crafting your posts out and let tools like Buffer schedule them out for you. And on the WordPress, you can do a similar thing in terms of scheduling out when your blogs hit the audience out there. So look at these tools. They're easy to use. Certainly, LinkedIn, if you've got a company page, has behind it a very basic analytics platform. It shows you visitors to your platform. It shows you other interest in your articles, etc. So you get some feedback, and just use those tools to understand what impact you're having, and it's not just about has someone looked at it, because people glance at stuff. Is there an active process? Has someone clicked on it, followed the link through to somewhere else? Have they shared it, commented? That activity is more important in terms of generating interest that can lead to a sales for you in the future. Now, other tools that don't seem to get much use, I'm surprised about, are, for example, Google Alerts is one of those tools, been around for a long, long time. It's not really marketed much, but it's incredibly powerful. You can set up on Google Alerts any search term you want to look at, and it will basically hunt in the background based on your own schedule of, if you want to have it sort of, every day, every week, hour, whatever. And it will hunt around even language platforms as well and look at that term appearing. So if I do a startup school search, it will tell loads of educational returns as well, but I can look around at any posting that's appeared on the internet that has those terms in it. So it's useful for R&D. So, for example, I use it to check competitive products. I use it to check reports that are coming out on perhaps market analysis. And I get in my inbox every day a bunch of these updates popping up with useful tidbits. On the right, it's free analytics. It's an incredibly powerful tool. Very few people use it because it looks a bit daunting, and it's not really. Once you set it up, a little bit of code goes into your website, a little snippet, which you basically have a little thing. If your WordPress already, you basically put a snippet into your control panel, then it'll then link it to analytics. With analytics, you can drill through your website. You can see who's looking at it, what age group they are. You can look at where they come into your website, how they get into it. Are they direct? Are they through a search? Is it through a referral or something through social media? Is it, for example, if you've got LinkedIn posts are generating links to your website, you can then assess your LinkedIn activity in terms of generating interest for your website. You can look at how they go through your website. You can look at how long they spend on each page in the website, look at where they exit. You can look at geographically where your spread of customers is. You can look at repeat versus new customers. It's incredibly powerful. So I would really recommend you have a look. You spent time and money putting a website up. It's madness not to look and see how it's being used. And you can start to combine these products to get more composite views. So, for example, if you put a post out on LinkedIn with a link to your website, and perhaps for Twitter, whatever, you can look at which of those announcements generates most interest. You can look at, with some tools as well, based on that interest, what translates into a sale. And then future cycles, you can say, well, if I did a post on Twitter, it generated this kind of revenue for me, versus Instagram, versus Facebook, versus LinkedIn, versus direct marketing. So you can compare and contrast how your marketing affects revenue on your business. They're all free, these tools, so don't neglect them, and don't be put off by analytics. Slightly clunky looking front end. Have a play with it. You can't break it. Just see what information you get out of it, and it is very powerful. Now, I'm going to introduce this bottom right graphic a few times because it's really, really important. And what I'm really showing here is that, whoops, got the page too fast, sorry. Where am I? Yeah. The bottom right bit is really important. This is where you want to get to the business. Literally, the black box on the new customer side This is basically customers you haven't quite got a relationship with yet, but you want to reach out to. And you then do some marketing using these very tools like sort of Buffer or HubSpot, whatever, to generate some interest, or even website posts, or whatever. And you get some kind of recognition taking place. And then you start to get people looking more actively at what you're doing. And at some point, they start to buy things from you, services or products. And the target is to keep that loop around. So you then have experience with you. You then generate sort of a loyalty with your brand and your products and services. And then you get a cycle of more and more things being bought off of you. So you want to consider this. And to do this, it starts to drive the way that you look at the tools that automate your business. So you need to look at how you find those markets, how you assess interest, how you drive interest into evaluating a product or service with you, and then how you automate the whole bit around generating sort of sales and how you recognize and reward loyalty, etc. So the first tool that people don't tend to use for this are CRM products. And again, there's loads of these in the market that are free that you can use. Like Zoho is a free one, HubSpot is a free one. When you get the free product, look a bit longer term, because what's free may be the freemium model of I'll suck you in with a product that's free, but to get anything beyond the basics, you've got to pay a lot of money. When you get very familiar with it, you like it a lot, you may find yourself paying a large bill. So look longer term at which ones perhaps are free or low cost to give you the benefit you want, but don't lock you into very expensive expansion into a more comprehensive system later on. So the CRM products, they're very powerful. So these things are really about when somebody has an interest, and what Louise will find when she's a bit more into HubSpot is you can link HubSpot into your website. So it will look at what's happening on the website, look at email, etc., and it'll also generate interest in terms of what's happening, who's looking at your products and services, and you'll start to get these potentials that you can then follow up. Now, the product is great because rather than a spreadsheet or a Word document or just sort of whatever you've got in your local hard drive, it maintains that information in a structured manner for you. It tells you literally a sort of stage you're going through, and you can calibrate these in terms of you've got some details like someone's name, address, a company, whatever. It may even with HubSpot pre-populate some of the company information for you based on website data extracted automatically. You can then see if that's worth pursuing. You can then qualify it through these CRM products. You can then generate a qualified entry, which is basically an entry of interest that you think has the potential to sell something to. You can then, when you get to the point of starting the sales process, you can then look at what stage you're going through. You can assess different approaches and assess rates based on stages. It will then track every time that person was contacted by email, by phone, or they contacted you, or they rebrowsed the website, etc. You can then look at that whole customer journey. You can then go beyond it in terms of closing the transaction, so sort of generating sort of quotes, generating sort of sales orders and invoices, etc. You then have that system maintain that information for that customer that's active with you. So you then have that existing customer piece that tells you when you last talked to them. I worked with a company last year, and they were looking at churn rates on customers, and that they had about 12 to 15 churn codes on customers. What I said to them is, you haven't got 15 churn codes, you've got 3. You either don't sell to existing customer, you either sort of neglect that customer in some shape or form, or you're uncompetitive. And these tools help you identify that threat to your loyalty to existing customers. So if you close a contract with a customer for a product and it says that it requires low attention, if you stop there, you're in danger territory, because somebody else like yourself will be actively pursuing new customers, will come across that customer and have a conversation and say, when did your account manager last talk to you? It was a year ago. And the number of mid-sized companies I work with, and I guess the customer asks the question, when someone last come and see you, it's staggering how infrequently they're visited and loved. What do you think is the easiest source of new business? Your current customers. And very few customers do the mapping of what their potential spend is versus what the current spend is, and ask some basic questions around what next. CRM tools allow you to have information loaded up, so you can ask questions around budgets. You can then draw up account plans around if a customer has 100,000 budget per year on perhaps training, and I'm getting £4,000 or £5,000 that a year, where's the other budget going to? And you have more conversation. This is the easiest sale to do. If they're aware of you, you've got a reason to go and visit them. These tools help you to do that more effectively by giving you a view around the whole customer, both in terms of a prospect all the way through to existing customer you've been working with. Now, there are a whole range of tools you can look at. Bit24 is great for all round. Again, I use Zoho. It's free, that's why I use it quite a bit. It's not as nice as HubSpot, Louise, in terms of user friendliness and upstream in terms of website integration and campaigns. But there's a reason I use, which I'll go through a little bit later on, versus, HubSpot is great for that website integration, also early analysis of customer behaviors. There's no best tool out there. They're all effective. Or it's just doing is use one, have a look at them and use them. They also structure where you approach, so you get a standardized approach to engaging a customer, closing a sale, and managing a customer afterwards. The bottom line is really, really important. There's optimized versus integrated, and I get a lot of customers that say, I've got NetSuite, I've got a HubSpot front end, I use this other tool somewhere else. And then you get the integration thing about, well, how do you pass the information from HubSpot to NetSuite? How do you pass it back to HubSpot? So when you find the customer, you get to a point of they're qualified, you then pass it to NetSuite. How do you then tell HubSpot it's been qualified as a customer? How do you maintain those two databases? So it can be done. There are ways of linking into integrating and maintaining it synchronously, but be mindful. You can make a rub for your backs if you're not careful. So think long term. Okay. There are other and you have a website that sells product. Sorry?
Oh, I think your internet stopped for a moment then, Anthony.
Is it up again?
It just froze, but
now it's back. My daughter upstairs.
Yeah, only froze for about 4 seconds or something.
This is the joys of being at home with a 17-year-old daughter bringing the internet upstairs.
I'll let you go for it.
I have warned her already. Don't go on your phone at all. You can, if you have a website that has e-commerce as part of its functionality, if you're selling products or services off it, and this is becoming more popular with the current sort of changes in our culture at the moment. There are ways of, if someone looks at a product or a service and you're having a conversation with them, you can navigate through that conversation and get to a close with them. And the idea is you stay with them, and as every salesperson will say to you, stay with the customer and try and get the close. Don't walk away and say, so don't think about it. In most cases, try and get the close. With a website and online, people click, and that click is a few seconds at a time. They click on the website, find an interest. If it's simply a case of, oh, we do this product or a service, they might click away somewhere else. And this is why Amazon are really smart around click to put your basket, and then you're pressured to go from basket to pay. If it's a website, without getting too commercial, you need to encourage people to go from browse to select to commit and buy without going somewhere else. It's been an enjoyable journey for them. Now, things like WooCommerce, it's free. Again, you've got to pay for it. Remarkably sophisticated, most of it. And you can also, for example, if a customer puts a product into a shopping cart, you can with a few add-ons, you can have, if that's been left, you can have that customer prompted to, you put this in the cart, yesterday or earlier today. Do you want to continue? Is a link to click and continue the transaction? So you need to keep on your customers with automation tools like this that encourage them to commit and close a sale with you. Similarly, it's staggering with basic tools like Word is a fantastically powerful product. It has inbuilt mass mailing capabilities. Look at the top menu on your Word documents. You'll see a bit on the top around mailing, which allows you to create, for example, a mail list. Now, it's as easy as a spreadsheet with a field which may be a column with names and another column with addresses. Word can look at that Excel spreadsheet and pull out of it each of those rows rows. And if you put a standard pro forma template in Word, it will then generate, based on that database you put into a spreadsheet, a whole pile of either letters, envelopes, or mails, emails for you. You can then have Word drive that to an email that's sent to your customers. It's free. It doesn't require any coding. The functionality is all there because it's all Microsoft Stack. It's all integrated. So you can send out mass mailing really easily if you've got very, very basic spreadsheet skills. It's all menu driven. So you can use current list. You can use Outlook. We like the whole range of options you can use. So have a look at those features in current products you have. They're really useful. Okay. Now, moving on from marketing to customer support. If anybody here, and it probably applies to, I think probably everyone, to be honest, because we all have products or services that we send to customers. And either during the sales cycle, or it may be after the sales cycle, we can get into support, queries come back. And you want a way of capturing these, so you have some sort of way of referencing who's queried about what. You may want to look at trends. It might be that umpteen people complain about a product you've issued or a service, to look at trends in there, and also obviously standardize the responses back. So rather than having a bunch of emails floating around that you may or may not forget to respond to, these kind of tools allow you to track that response. When a customer, and they can also register these queries online through your website or another portal, in terms of a query that they can then categorize. You then have a ticket that's generated that gives you information about the priority, the source details, and the rest. And I mentioned earlier about the 3 reasons that customers churn, because you're not selling, you neglect them, or sort of you're uncompetitive. Not looking after them in this scenario is where losing customers. And also, every single time a customer contacts you with a problem, it's an opportunity to have a conversation, to see how things are, to look at potentially ask questions around what else can we do for you. And the faster you resolve that irritation they have, the better. It may be a sales query that you need to track. So again, these tools, and there are loads out there like HubSpot, Agile or Fresh Service, again, Zoho as well, Spiceworks, there's loads and loads of these things, and a lot more free. Lets you structure all this information coming back into your business about queries. It can be a query, it can be some sort of problem they've got with the system you've got, or a service. It may have a priority in terms of, I want to fit by date or time. And again, they're free, easy to use, and they make you work in a structured manner. Again, longer term, think about what you're going to do. So, for example, if you're doing a very basic support system for clients, it may be now I do basic IT support. Some of these tools are great for supporting one group, one thing, that is really for one user. You can tweak and tune them, you can frig them to work on multiple. If you're going to scale and grow, think about the capabilities you need to have early. So it may be that free isn't necessarily good if you're doing multiple clients. For example, ServiceNow have their basic products is a great service desk tool set. If you look closely at the cheap, well, it's not cheap, but it's their budget version. It's designed for one business and not multiple clients. And hidden in the text, buried down there's another product that they bought and integrated a few years back that services multiple clients, which is more expensive, but you have to consider your use, because one gives you a lot of workarounds to manage a big diverse estate. The other was designed to do it but much easier longer term. So consider the functionality to have. But if you're just doing basic support to customers, these products are great. So look at all these products and get a feel for which ones you think might be useful. The horrible topic of finance. There are loads of tools, and I said in one of the sessions before, up front, use your accountant heavily, because you haven't got time to go through sort of stuff too much for the first 6 months to a year. So don't get too involved in this side initially. But when you get a bit of time spare, have a look. And if you ask an accountant, my accountant, I say to him, what kind of format would you like your content from me in? I'll give me a spreadsheet. And they'll be I say to them, yeah, would you like Sage? Would you like Zero? They don't care. But for your own benefit of management accounts, so rather than waiting for some of my clients, they wait year end till they say they're performing, is a terrible thing to do. You can have a real-time view of what's going on. And these tools allow you to look. I use, again, I'm biased, I use books, it's very cheap, but I use it, I think QuickBooks and Xero is the same process, but you can have the tool linked to your bank account. It can then look at what transactions are passing through your bank account. It will then send the transactions into the system, and if you have, for example, transactions that aren't linked to an invoice, it'll highlight them as orphaned to basically resolve. At a point in time, you can see revenue, cash flow. You can look at cash in the bank. You can profile your business in terms of where you're selling to, based on its knowledge of your customer base. They're incredibly powerful tools. So at a point in time, you can see what state your business is in. And the reason is critical because businesses tend to struggle on things like cash flow. So if your term, for example, 90 days, you may have lots of revenue, but your cash flow could be appalling. So it's important to look at these systems and understand the impacts on projecting forward your financial position. Payroll, unless you've got a lot of people on the books, I would suggest you use your accountant, because if they just generate for you an email that says, here are your POA slips, you can do the payment yourself. It's very quick and easy and quite cheap. You can download from HMRC the basic pay tools. It's a very simple tool if you're registered with them already, that gives you the ability to do the payroll processing. It doesn't generate the POA slips. There's all the processing apart from that. Our tools like Sage and Xero will give you sort of a fairly comprehensive payroll system. We all have, I certainly do still to a degree, the shoebox full of receipts, bits of paper, etc. And it's surprising how much you can automate this stuff as well, because you can have tools like Shoeboxed. I know that I think Xero does it, and Zoda as well, that will scan. And I had it set up in one company in the US. It literally was they would submit their expenses, just scan with their phone their receipt. It would then read where it could the text and translate into basically the expense pro forma for them. And if it couldn't, it would leave you some notes saying, can you put these fields for me? That allowed them to bin the paperwork, and it allowed the process to be much faster. I'd be sat around the poolside, with a nice cocktail, with my watch, authorising expenses on the spot. So there are benefits to these kind of tools, and it gives you again a real-time view of exactly what's being expensed at a point in time. Similarly, you can integrate your systems on CRM with finance, so you can literally say your sales guys' basic rates of pay is this, their commission on sold products is this. Using the CRM product in terms of what's being pushed out for closed sales, you can then generate their sort of the pay it's due to them each month. You can automate that process in terms of understanding what their commission rates are. Much easier way of doing it. And these tools again vary. I mean, the one on the top right is a product that does a similar thing, but rather than you or the person having to code in and check that the translation is correct, it'll take the image and it'll do a machine read, and then somebody will literally go through it and check it for you, and they'll give it a little verified green box at the top, give you a complete return. So if you want to have a bit of a more lazy way of doing it, you can have this back-end admin team that basically go through and just verify it for you as well. So there's a range of levels of automation you can have. The price varies, so if it's just machine only, it's very cheap. And to be honest, most people can check that a form's been completed and add in the bits that are missing, if it's missing, rather than someone check for you. So you take your own choice in terms of how far you want that level of automation of the system. Okay, I think this is really a key bit in terms of what I want to try and get across today, which is and it's a horrible term, ERP. It doesn't really describe what's going on here. It's really total automation of the system you have. So it's giving you a view of every part of your business, from marketing, so what interest you have and where you're reaching out to this whole sales process, from sort of twinkling the eye through to a closed bit of business, and then the account customer management, the financial bit. So literally sort of When you have sales closing, being able to post that information into the finance system, so you can say the projected forecast this quarter, this month, this year is X, Y, Z. Being able to, at a point in time, check if you're a salesperson, the stock on the shelf, where it is, and to check sort of lead times if you're going to back order it. For your HR side, having your teams online and managed in terms of their basic packages, their performance appraisals, all these things can be put into a platform. And the cost to do it can be staggeringly cheap if you look at the right products. This is why I'm not an advocate for one product, but I use Zoho after a little bit looking around the platforms around for a small business. And I took the decision to sacrifice some sophistication in some of the tools. It doesn't do payroll. It's not as good as HubSpot upfront for marketing. It's not as good as Sage for managing warehouses. But all the bits together fit and talk. So I get from that product a complete ERP system, and that's hugely valuable. Salesforce is a very similar thing. It's much more expensive, more sophisticated, much more expensive. The cost can escalate quite fast. It's multiples more than Zoho. Other products like NetSuite, Oracle-based products, very comprehensive, very powerful, very expensive again. It's a high barrier to entry in terms of the price bit. You can link tools together. The challenge with the linking tools together is that it's through sort of plugins and little applets that sit between the applications, is that when a product version changes, you've got to hope the vendor does the regression testing to ensure that the link still works effectively. And if one vendor either stops supporting your products, but the product is continuing on its path of development, you can get a step very quickly and you find yourself locked into a legacy platform that's hard to move off of. So that the key bit is, in terms of if you want to look at automating more broadly, look longer term and decide which products you like and fit together and have a long future path ahead of them in terms of you can scale them if you're going to grow the business. If you're going to keep yourself small and beautiful, then focus around tools that are fit for purpose, that they're best of breed and potentially free. Most of them are free in the market these days. And don't get too worried about the enterprise resource planning bits. But think ahead and think what needs to use, and look at the tools that are free. There are loads of free tools in the marketplace. Don't be put off by them. You'd be mad not to leverage technology we currently have around us, like Word, even Excel. Every platform you look at has some degree of automation wrapped into it. Start to play with it and explore it and see what you can do in your system and your business in terms of automating process and functions. Okay, that was my last run through bit. We've got 10 minutes for a run through chat, follow up, more deep dive in topic areas. Any questions?